So welcome back to yet another patch notes video for Dead by Daylight, featuring the all-new public test build for 9.2.0 with the brand new chapter Sinister Grace, which comes with 2 additional characters, one being a brand new killer, the Krasue, a grotesque horrific abomination, and the brand new survivor, Vee Perks. And in addition to these 2 new characters, this public test build features a absolute plethora of new changes to both killers, survivors, as well as many perks. And on top of that, we have some all-new additions featuring the tunneling reduction updates, as well as some slugging reduction updates. Now, the devs said that this update was going to be one of their goriest and most horrific updates yet, and I would have to say they probably succeeded with that. So, since we're going to be editing this for a good little while, and the patch notes being longer than my war crime list, I can tell I'm going to be in for quite the depressing editing session. So on that note, I hope you guys do enjoy this, as these videos take a excessive amount of time to edit, and how about we shave off a little bit of that time by getting right into it. So, unlike usual, we're going to be starting off with the brand new killer, the Krasue. Starting up, we have the killer's ability, Unbodied Flesh, in which the Krasue will detach from its body, and emerging as a floating head with a trail of organs drifting behind it. The Krasue is able to switch between 2 forms, being body form and head form, and each of which have their own distinct abilities and traits. Starting off, the body form has a 32 meter tear radius at the standard size, while the head form has a 40 meter tear radius, but also has a slightly faster movement speed and is unable to break pallets, and also is not granted the Bloodlust status effect. This is because the head form is meant to be more of your offensive state. And, while you may not be able to break pallets in the head form, you are able to vault over them much quicker than you'll be able to vault a window. After that, we have a brand new effect that the killer can apply themselves called Leeched. Hitting a survivor with an intestinal whip or regurgitate adds to the leeched meter, and when the leeched meter is filled, the survivor will be afflicted with Leeched 1. We will be talking about the intestinal whip and the regurgitate abilities soon, so don't worry about that yet. When a survivor has reached tier 1 of the leeched status, the leech meter will automatically fill up over time up to Leeched 2. When any survivor has reached leech tier 2, the survivor will be afflicted with broken, and if they are healthy, they will become injured. So, of the special abilities, we're going to start with regurgitate. In body form, press and hold the power button to charge regurgitate. When it's charged, you can tap the attack button to spew a leeching gland, which is a small little blood projectile. This projectile, when hitting off of walls or off of survivors, it'll splatter off of the survivor or obstacle it lands onto and make kind of a splash effect. If a survivor is hit by either the splat or the direct projectile, they will immediately fill their leech meter to Leech 1. After that, we have Intestinal Whip, so while you are in head form, press the attack button to lash out with your internal organs. Survivor afflicted with Leeched tier 1 or higher will be able to be damaged by the Intestinal Whip. However, if a survivor is not already at minimum Leeched 1, the Intestinal Whip will only partially fill the leech meter. This is insinuating you to use the regurgitate to more quickly get the leech meter to tier 1, since it is a guaranteed full fill. Though it is worth noting that the regurgitate projectile cannot damage players with leech, it is only the Intestinal Whip. Continuing on with the head form capabilities, we have Headlong Flight. This is meant to be a more mobility ability. While in head form, press and hold the power button to speed through the air. You will lower down to the ground and move at an incredibly fast speed, and you will have a limited use time on the bottom left, and this takes a pretty long time to recharge, so make sure you use it when you want to get around pretty quickly. Finally, survivors have a way to counteract the leech effect via the use of the Glowing Fungus. Survivors can eat glowing fungus to decrease the leech meter over time. However, if you are hit during this time, in any form, it'll end the effect and make you go back to the progressive leech effect. Unlike other effects such as like Nemesis or Plague, eating the quote-unquote cure will not instantly cure you. The glowing fungus will put you into the recovery state of the leeched effect, so that way it'll progressively go down over time, and also it will progress through each tier of leeched instead of all at once. So if you're at tier 1 or above, you'll have to progress down the Leech 2 progression and then regress the Leeched 1 progression. These mushrooms can be found around the map while you're in the leech state, and also, something that is worth noting that the description does not tell you, whenever you switch into head form, the corpse of your body that you leave behind will turn into a fungus that someone else can use. Oh, and a fun little fact, yes, while you're in head form, you are able to pick up survivors, so it does look pretty cool looking. Moving on to the Krasue's 3 new perks. Starting off with Ravenous. Whenever you hook a survivor for the first time, gain 1 token up to a maximum of 4. When you have gained all 4 tokens, all survivors will scream and gain exposed for 40, 50, or 60 seconds. After that, we have Wandering Eye. Whenever you start chasing a survivor, Review the auras of all other injured survivors within 16 meters for 5 seconds, and this perk has a 40, 35, and 30 second cooldown. I'm going to be dead honest, this is a really bad perk, honestly. After that, we have Hex Overture of Doom. This will spawn a Hex totem that will curse the farthest generator and reveals its aura in yellow to you. Now, by farthest generator, it means the furthest generator away from your beginning location at the start of the trial. When a survivor repairs the cursed generator for 5 seconds, you gain the undetectable and your terror radius is applied to the generator for 20, 25, and 30 seconds. When the cursed generator is repaired, the next farthest generator is also cursed. Now, I would say this is pretty good, however, I would say the main downside is the application of the terror radius to that generator, because that'll immediately give away what perk you are using, as well as the likely chances that you are going to be approaching that generator, so survivors will know ahead of time to leave its area. Alright, now moving on to the brand new survivor, Vee Bunyazak. I apologize if I fucked that up badly, which I likely did. So, starting off with her brand new perks, we are starting with Road Life. While injured, not broken, and repairing a generator, gain 1 token for each regular great skill check success. When you have 8, 7, or 6 tokens, spend all tokens and gain 100% healing speed until you stop healing, and you will lose 2 tokens when you fail a regular skill check. This is a shockingly bad perk, to be dead honest with you, because not only does it require you to do 6 great skill checks, you have to also obtain those skill checks, land the great skill check, and also the prerequisite that you have to be injured and not broken for this to even start triggering. And on top of that, when you spend the tokens are spent automatically against your choice when you start healing someone and you have those 6 tokens. All around, not really that good of a perk, just use Will Make It or something, honestly. Hell, even Botany Knowledge for the consistency would be a better choice. After that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a brand new musical perk, similar to Bardic Inspiration. Its functions very similar to Bardic Inspiration, where you must press a button to activate the performance states, it'll last for 15 seconds, and it'll empower the survivors within 16 meters. However, the difference being on this one is you will get continuous, very easy skill checks during the whole duration of the performance, and the effect will last for 90 seconds if the performance is completed. The benefit that you and anyone else nearby will get is that it will increase the odds of getting healing or repair skill checks by 20%. When the ability is cancelled or the performance completes, it will go on cooldown for 110, 100, or 90 seconds. This one is a very good perk to be paired with Bardic Inspiration, or just perks related to skill checks in general if you're trying to get the benefit of having more skill checks consistently. After that, we have Ghost Notes. While you have the exhausted status effect, your scratch marks will disappear 50% faster, and you will additionally recover 5, 7.5, or 10% faster from the exhausted status effect. Alright, so now moving on to the base game changes, we're going to be starting off with the Tunneling Reduction update. For the first segment of this update, they're going to be doing some changes to the unhook protections. Starting off, they're going to having the survivors that are unhooked or unhooked themselves will receive the unhook protection statuses for 30 seconds, which used to be 10 seconds. This includes the 10% haste status effect and the endurance status effect like usual. However, this will also be including the brand new elusive status effect, which will grant survivors the ability to hide their grunts of pain, aura, scratch marks, and pools of blood. On top of this, they're making it so that they will not have any collision with any other survivor players specifically, and also it will reveal the killer's aura within 32 meters of the survivor for this duration. Now, it's also worth noting for this situation that it is a white aura, meaning that blindness will not prevent this aura from being shown to you. On top of that, they're having the immunity to Killer Instinct, which I believe is the only way to avoid Killer Instinct in the entire game now. Along with that, they also have immunity to the AFK crows, which is not a big deal. These effects will also linger for 3 seconds after being healed for 1 full health state. These effects are also lost while performing a conspicuous action, just like usual. These effects are all disabled when generators are completed, except for the usual haste and endurance status effects. And also the survivor is still susceptible to attacks and powers so that you are not immune to them. Following up with that, there are some changes to the hook statuses on the killer side. So, when a survivor is hooked, the hook status is obscured to the killer by a black fog, meaning that you will not be able to see whether they are on or off a hook for that duration. The killer cannot see the hook statuses in the HUD, and you can no longer see the hook's aura during the time the survivor is on the hook. When a survivor is unhooked, you will no longer get a loud noise notification, and the hook status will remain hidden for the next 10 seconds after the survivor is removed from the hook. These effects are also all disabled after all generators are completed, meaning that it will go back to the usual system of being able to see the aura of the hook, as well as the explosion when someone gets unhooked when gens are completed. Now, that may seem like a lot of benefits just for the survivor side, however, killers are getting some massive benefits for hooking unique survivors to incentivize less tunneling and more going after individual people. So, starting off, When hooking a survivor that is different from the person who was hooked last, the killer will gain the following benefits. One of the biggest ones would be that you're getting a 20% additional bonus to the next generator damaged, kicking the generator action, meaning effectively that Pop Goes the Weasel is now a base kit function. Isn't that fun to think about? So, to indicate that you have this increased generator damage on your next kick, you will notice that the generators will be shooting out some small flames. This is to tell you that you have that additional damage for your next kick active, just to make sure that you aren't forgetting about it. On top of that, the killer will also gain a 10% haste status effect for 15 seconds. This will grant you a lot more mobility and the capability to get across the map faster after hooking a unique person. However, it's worth noting that breaking a pallet or damaging a survivor will remove this bonus immediately. On top of those two benefits, when you hook a unique survivor, you will reveal all other survivors outside of 40 meters that have less or equal hook states for 4 seconds related to the survivor that you hooked. And like they said, think of it as barbecue and chili is now part of base kit. These effects will only be gained when the killer performs the hook interaction themselves. This is specifically specifying if someone like Pyramid Head will hook someone from a distance using the remote hook in the cage. However, some killers would benefit from these bonuses a lot more effectively than others. So, the high mobility killers will get some reductions towards these effects to make it more fair. The killers such as the Blight, the Dark Lord, the Ghoul, the Hillbilly, the Krasue, and the Nurse will all get changes. These killers will instead get 10% bonus damage to the next generator kick action, and 5% haste status effect for 10 seconds rather than the 10% for 15. However, the aura reveals will remain the same as above. And as usual, these effects are disabled when generators are completed. However, there are some punishments being put in place should the killers continue to tunnel the same survivors. So, starting off with when a survivor dies to a hook action or mori before 6 total hook states have happened. Meaning, not just hooks, hook states. So there has to be a progressive 6 total hook states that have passed through the trial already for this to not kick in. Should this happen, the remaining survivors will gain a 25 repair speed bonus for the rest of the trial. And, after that, this one is a little bit more concerning. When a survivor that was previously hooked is killed or sacrificed, meaning that if the person that was last hooked is killed or sacrificed as the next action, the killer will lose the ability to block, damage, or regress any generators by any means for the rest of the trial. So after that, we have some updates being put in place to reduce the frequency of slugging. So starting off with the self-recovery side. While a survivor is in the dying state, the resolve bar is a new bar that appears below the recovery bar. The resolve bar will take 90 seconds to fill, and it will not reset between downs. Once the resolve bar is full, the survivor gains the ability to pick themselves back up from the dying state after fully recovering. Meaning that if a survivor is left on the ground for far too long, they will have the option to get themselves up without actually having to need the help of somebody else. On top of that, there's some quality of life improvements being added to these similar functions. So starting off, survivors are now able to crawl and recover at the same time, simply being as if tenacity was base kit. On top of that, recovery is now automatic and no longer requires a button to be held, meaning that the moment you go down, the recovery bar will start automatically going up by itself without the need of your own input. Furthermore, crawling speed will increase over time when you are left in the dying state, progressing from 0.7 meters per second, which is the default movement speed, all the way up to 1.05 meters a second, meaning that you automatically will crawl faster the longer you are on the ground. And as one little bonus, they have added a new scenario to the abandon option. After recovering or being healed from the dying state twice, the option to abandon becomes available if you are downed once more, meaning that if you've been downed twice already and get up for any reason, it is obvious that you're just being slugged continuously, so if it happens again, you are allowed to leave the match if you so choose. Alright, so now moving on to the killer changes. We're starting off with actually a rework for the Shape, also known as Michael Myers. So starting off with a change to how his base ability works, the Shape will now have 3 modes: Stalker, Pursuer, and Evil Incarnate mode. He has the ability to switch between Stalker and Pursuer mode at will without the need to stalk anything, and the Shape must stalk survivors to unlock Evil Incarnate mode. And whilst in Evil Incarnate mode, you have the access to the new ability, the Slaughtering Strike. So, getting into the details, in Stalker mode, the Shape will be undetectable at all times but only move at 4.2 meters a second, which is 105% movement speed. You can hold the power button to stalk nearby survivors as usual, and when the stalk meter is full, after stalking enough survivors, you will automatically enter Pursuer mode and Stalker mode becomes unavailable, and this does grant you the ability to enter Evil Incarnate mode. Now, Pursuer mode, the Shape has a 24 meter tear radius and moves at 4.6 meters per second, which is the default speed, and their vault speed is increased by 15%, their lunge range, braking speed, and stun recovery speeds are increased by 10% at all times. meant that you give a little bit more benefits while being in pursuit mode just in general, just so that way you're not just a default killer moving around. After that, we have Evil Incarnate mode, which is typically what used to be Evil Within 3. When the stock meter is full, you can tap the ability to activate Evil Incarnate mode. However, compared to before where Evil Within used to last 60 seconds, Evil Incarnate mode will last 40 seconds. The shape will get a 40 meter tear radius and moves at the default movement speed of 4.6, and your vault speed is still increased by 15%. This unlocks the new ability, the Slaughtering Strike. Slaughtering Strike also grants you the ability to kill survivors who have reached the final hook stage. This includes both people on the ground as well as people standing up as if you had a tombstone piece, just to make it a little bit more convenient. Now for the Slaughtering Strike, you can hold the power button to charge up a lunge and then press the attack button to begin the attack. Holding the power button longer extends the duration to up to a maximum of 2 seconds. Slaughtering Strike has a base movement speed of 6.9 meters a second, and hits with the Slaughtering Strike will instantly down healthy survivors. The Slaughtering Strike also has the ability to break pallets and breakable walls, and has a 6-second cooldown between uses. As for the changes of functions to the stalking mechanic, the stock meter will now take 5 points to fill, which used to be 3 for tier 1 and 6 for tier 2, and they are increasing the movement speed multiplier when stalking a survivor to 60%, which used to be 20%. This meaning how much movement speed you get while you are successfully stalking somebody. The stalk rate is decreased by 25% while moving, however, so if you wanted to get faster, make sure you stalk them while standing still, unless otherwise needed. When the stock meter is not full, after 20 seconds of not stalking, the stock progress decays to 50%. They've also decreased the maximum range you can stalk survivors from 40 meters to 32 meters. On top of that, some small notes is that the survivors no longer have a limited amount of stock points. You can now stalk every survivor infinitely, and the stock rate is no longer affected by distance, so no matter where they are or how close they are, you will always get the same percentage of gain. Now, they've also reworked every single one of the Shapes add-ons, and I'm not going to be running through them here, so I'm going to be throwing up a list on the screen, and you can take your time to read them and pause the video if you so wish. Alright, after that, we have some slight changes coming to the Unknown, where they are increasing the weaken duration increase upon injuring a healthy survivor with the UVX projectile to 8 seconds from 6 seconds. Of course, this is the amount of weakened that they gain after taking damage while they are already affected by weakened, if they are hit with the projectile's blast radius, so that they gain back even more. They've also slightly reduced the movement speed recovery time after teleporting from 1.4 seconds to 1.3 seconds, which is basically non-existent. However, one of the more noticeable ones is that they increased the Unknown's vertical camera axis to allow higher aim elevation with the UVX projectile. There's also a couple of add-on changes, so I'll put them on a screen for you if you want to take a look at them. Coming up next, we have a few changes to the Dark Lord in all 3 of his forms, starting off with the Vampire form, where they are reducing the cooldown of Hellfire from 10 seconds to 9.5 seconds, which is very minimal. However, they're increasing the number of Hellfire pillars created when using your ability from 7 to 8, so you get a little bit more range. They are, however, reducing the Hellfire charge movement speed from 3.8 meters a second to 3.68 meters a second, meaning that you move slower while holding your ability. And they are also increasing the movement speed recovery time after activating Hellfire from 2.25 to 2.35 seconds, which just means you get a teensy tiny bit more time as slower movement speed after using Hellfire. Afterwards, we have Wolf form, where they are increasing the pounce attack charge time from 0.85 to 0.9 seconds, which is also basically a non-existent difference. And they are also increasing the Scent Orb spawn time from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. And after that, for Bat form, they are just increasing the Bat form flying movement friction to reduce sliding motion from 1.6 to 2.2. Basically just meaning that when you change directions or turn around, you don't drift nearly as much, and you get to have a more quicker recovery to the direction you want to go. They have also changed a bunch of the Dark Lord's add-ons, so like usual, I'll throw it on the screen if you would like to pause and take a look for yourself. So after that, we are moving on to some small changes to the Clown, where they are increasing the time it takes for the Afterpiece Antidote clouds to activate from 1 second to 1.6 seconds. So this way it's just going to take a teensy bit longer for the clouds to become yellow and you can actually initiate the haste, since before it was basically instant. And after that, they are also getting a small buff to the hindered effect on the Afterpiece Tonic clouds, where they are increasing the hindered effect lingering duration after leaving an Afterpiece Tonic cloud from 1 second to 1.6 seconds. So that way they just last a little bit longer after the survivors come out of the cloud, so you can get a little bit more value out of it. Coming up next, we have a small change for the Ghoul. When grabbing a survivor on the other side of a vault with a Kagune leap, the survivor is released at the start of the vault instead of the end. Now, it's important to note that this sounds simpler than it actually is, but it really isn't. So to explain it in detail, what this really means is when a survivor is released, it's talking about when you would initiate a grab that would normally be a bite grab that would do a damage state. As in, it can only be for grabs that happen after the initial one, because if you use the initial one, as long as you are in the enraged state, as you know, you will get a faster vault if you grab someone on the other side of an obstacle. However, by that is because the game would register initially when grabbing grabbing the survivor, it's going to register it as a bite, so it's going to intentionally try to hold them in place for how the animation would normally be when you do the damage state. However, since you would get into a vault, it would release them after you finish the vault before, so now it is going to register and let the survivor free at the beginning of the vault. This is not the same as when you're grabbing someone with the initial Kagune leap, because that does not hold them still, it merely gives them a small hindered effect for about half of a second. It's still a very minor and not very impactful change, but just so I can get the clarification out because I feel like this could be easily confused. And finally, for the killer changes, we have a small change for the Oni, where they're increasing the number of blood orbs that spawn when hooking a survivor from 2 to 5, just so you can get a little bit extra of your ability back when on your downtime. So, moving on to the perk changes, we're going to be having a lot of changes here to accommodate for the brand new slugging and tunneling reduction changes, as well as the new benefits the killers will be having. So, starting off with Babysitter that is getting a rework. After unhooking a survivor, you will now see the auras of the survivor and the killer's aura for 8, 10, and 12 seconds. Following that, we have Borrowed Time, which is getting a slight duration change, where survivors you unhook will retain their unhook protections for an additional 8, 10, or 12 seconds. Next up, we have Clairvoyance, where they increased the aura reading duration from 10, 11, and 12 seconds, which used to be 8, 9, and 10 seconds. Next up is Friendly Competition. They've increased the bonus repair progress speed duration from 45, 60, and 75 seconds to 100, 110, and 120 seconds. After that, we have Hope, where they're decreasing the haste status effect gained after exit gates are powered from 5, 6, and 7% to 3, 4, and 5%. After that, we have No Mither, where they are increasing the volume reduction for Grunts of Pain to 100% across all tiers instead of 25, 50, and 75%. Following up for Off the Record, they are removing the Endurance status effect, the one that would normally last for 80 seconds, but they have also removed the stipulation that it disables once exit gates are disabled. They have also added a new effect: while active, you do not leave scratch marks while sprinting. Leader is getting an increased action speed bonus value to 20, 25, and 30%, which used to be 15, 20, and 25%. They've also increased the action speed bonus range to affect other survivors from 8 meters to 10 meters. After that, Lucky Star is just getting a slight cooldown reduction of 5 seconds across the board, from 40, 35, and 30 seconds to 35, 30, and 25 seconds. Next up is Pharmacy, where they are increasing the speed that you unlock chests from 70, 85, and 100% faster to 75, 100, and 125% faster. They're also adjusting the hearing distance for noises when unlocking chests, being reduced from 16 meters to 12 meters. After that is Plot Twist, where they are adding a new effect to increase the recovery speed by 25% when used instead of just being the default recovery speed. After that, we have Poist, where they are increasing the killer aura reveal duration when repairing a generator for the first time from 6 seconds to 8 seconds, and they are also increasing the time where you leave no scratch marks after a generator is completed to 20, 25, and 30 seconds, up from 10, 12, and 14 seconds. Following that is Quick Gambit, where they are decreasing the cooldown when losing a health state from 60 seconds to 40 seconds. Coming up next is Tenacity, because they are adjusting this perk since most of its effects are base kit now, but they're adding a new effect that prevents your aura from being read while in the dying state. After that, they have decreased the crawling speed bonus from 30, 40, and 50% faster to 15, 20, and 25% faster. Alright, moving on to the killer perk changes, we are starting off with All Shaking Thunder, where they are just increasing the lunge attack distance increase duration from 8, 12, and 16 seconds to 15, 20, and 25 seconds. After that, we have A Nurse's Calling, where they are increasing the range from 20, 24, and 28 meters to 28, 30, and 32 meters. And also, this will no longer affect survivors who are in the dying state. Coming up next, we have a rework for Barbecue and Chili. Now what it does is, after hooking all survivors once, it will increase the base generator damage by 3, 4, and 5%, meaning that if you get this activated, you can get up to 10% instant regression on a generator kick. Next up is Dark Arrogance. They are decreasing the blind and pallet stun duration increase from 25% to 15%, so it's less punishing. Coming up next is Dead Man's Switch. They are decreasing the generator blocking duration from 40, 45, and 50 seconds to 25, 30, and 35 seconds. Next up is another rework, and this one is for Deerstalker. When a survivor sees your aura, you see their aura. Every 40, 35, and 30 seconds, you reveal your aura to the survivor with the lowest chase time for 3 seconds. This is effectively a killer's version of Objective Obsession. Next up is Eruption, where they are decreasing the generator progress loss from 10% to 5%. After that is Hex Ruin, a pretty good buff here. They are increasing the generator regression speed from 50, 75, and 100% to 100, 125, and 150% of the base speed. After that is Leverage, where they are decreasing the healing speed reduction value from 30, 40, and 50% to 20, 25, and 30%. However, they are increasing the healing speed reduction duration from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. After that, we have Monitor Abuse, just a slight alteration in the way it functions while still being the same. While you are in chase, your tear radius is now decreased by 5, 10, and 15% instead of 6, 7, and 8 meters. Otherwise, your tear radius is now decreased by 15, 20, and 25% instead of being 6, 7, and 8 meters as well. This is to mainly more affect the larger or smaller tear radius killers to make it so that it's more or less impactful on certain tear radius sizes. After that, we have Pop Goes the Weasel, doing a slight reduction since we are getting it base kit now. They have decreased the generator progress loss to 15% instead of 20% of the current progress. After that, we have Oppression, where they've increased the random generator selection to damage when damaging a generator from 3 to 4 generators. They've also decreased the cooldown from 60, 50, and 40 to 45, 40, and 35 seconds. Coming up next, which is unsurprising, is Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. They have decreased the generator progress loss from 10, 15, and 20% to 8, 10, and 12%. After that, we have Septic Touch, something that's been in need of a slight enhancement because it's been not very impactful, is they have increased the linger duration of the Blindness and Exhausted stat effect from 6, 8, and 10 seconds to 20, 25, and 30 seconds after a healing action is stopped within the tear radius. And finally, we have Ultimate Weapon, where they have increased the range when opening a locker to trigger on survivors from 32 meters to 40 meters, and they have also decreased the cooldown from 80, 70, and 60 seconds to 55, 50, and 45 seconds. Alright, and that's going to do it for the 9.2.0 patch notes video. However, before you click off, I think there's one final important thing I need to mention here before the end of this video. So you may have noticed a lot of these changes are very drastic, and also a lot of them at the same time can be a little questionable. And around now is where I would normally apologize for taking so long to get this video up, and also taking insanely fucking long to edit it. We've received news already from the developers that, yeah. So basically, a majority of everything here is not going to happen. I would expect the killer buffs and changes and whatever have you to be still implemented, but any of the new systems like the slugging or the tunneling enhancements or whatever have you are not going to be getting implemented, nor are the perks that are being changed because of these new systems. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is not really relevant, at least not now. Anyways, nonetheless, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative, as the usual stuff. I won't lie, I was a little discouraged to even finish this video after learning about the fact that a lot of these weren't going to be implemented, but I figured I might as well finish it up just so I can show you what could have been. Even if some tweaks need to be made to these systems, we won't be seeing them back for probably a little while until the next major patch. So, with that all being said, as usual, thank you guys for checking out this video, little unmined amongst most. If you did like it, do the usual stuff if you really care, honestly, like liking and commenting. But what I really care about is if you guys actually did enjoy this, leave a comment, tell me what you thought, honestly. My favorite thing is always just hearing what you guys say, honestly, to see if you enjoyed it, what you would like more of, what you would like less of, or perhaps things you'd just like to see in the future. Anyways, enough of my jabbering. Thank you once again, and I'll see you on the next one.